Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune, Spencer Forsythe's on our board. And we're here to talk as fall camp gets closer and closer. You have Sooners Under the Stars this week. You have Party at the Palace the following day. You've also got fall camp kicking off next week. And Oklahoma's looking to try to close out not one, but two five-star offensive linemen in the 2025 class. Lots going on, lots to talk about. Visitors. We'll talk about some fall camp. I guess summer workout notes, some buzz, and we will discuss. We may wait to get to the prediction on our schedule stuff for the next podcast, but we'll see how much time we have. Answer your questions as well, this podcast. But Parker, first, let's pay some bills, and then we'll get right after it.
Yes, folks, this episode of OU Insider Live is brought to you by our good friends at Mando. And this summer, well, I guess we're halfway through summer. This fall, when football season hits, and we're all traveling, us probably more than the average human, but many Sooner fans will travel for at least one road game. That's what a lot of them do. You can simplify travel with Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar. It's a 5-ounce bar that does the work of a shampoo, face wash, body wash, and deodorant. You can also use it to create a rich shaving lather. So technically, it's a 5-in-1. It's clinically proven to control odor for 24 hours. Mando's 4-in-1 acidified cleansing bar is formulated with a gentle alpha hydroxy acid that stops odor at the source. Regular soap can't do that because the pH is too high, And that's only scratching the surface of Mando's entire product lineup, created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Mando is American-made, aluminum-free, baking soda-free, cruelty-free, dye-free, and vegan, clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. Now, Mando's starter pack is the perfect thing for new customers. Comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. Luckily, we got a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. Now, that equates to over 40% off your starter pack as a whole. Use code INSIDER at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Again, 40% off your starter pack when you use code INSIDER at shopmando.com.
There you go. Shopmando.com. Don't have BO. That's kind of the key. I didn't know people diagnosed BO. That's a new phenomenon that I did not know was a real thing, of diagnosing BO. My diagnosis would be, if you smell like ass when you walk by me, you probably have BO.
Well,
or you haven't wiped your butt in a while.
I was going to say, BO itself is natural, but it can also be like there could also be a medical condition underlying that gets misdiagnosed.
That's very true. Very true, I guess.
Yes. Mando, folks, shopmando.com.
Yes.
Check them out.
There you go. I like using it, just so y'all know. Like, I love when they send us the little starter kit stuff that you talked about, particularly when we travel. So, yeah. How do we want to start this podcast? I know there's a lot to talk about. I mean, we didn't even hint about the $10 million. Like, I have a little bit more information on how Oklahoma potentially plans on using that after talking to some people this week. And look, I guess we can start there because that was a big deal.
It was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And throughout the live stream, just want to remind folks, if you have a question that you want to make sure gets answered, drop a super chat. You can donate any amount, whether it's $2, $20, $200,
99 cents.
If you're feeling like a mega booster tonight. But you can fire questions away in the chat. We'll get to them as we're able. But if you want to guarantee that your question gets answered or the topic on your mind gets discussed, drop a super chat, because we will hit every single super chat. We make that promise to all of you. Every single super chat question will be addressed before the end of the show. So, the Kimry family's $20 million donation, we talked about it a little bit on the podcast. I would say we talked about it quite a bit on the podcast, but that's substantial. you know what else is substantial, Brandon? Two things kind of colliding chronologically to just blow the doors open in terms of possibilities for Skip Johnson and his baseball team. One being the $10 million donation, the other being the increase of 22 additional scholarships allocated to the sport of baseball. The NCAA is going to
Yeah.
approve changes. Obviously, the football scholarship number is going to go up to 105. That's what
Yep.
everybody's talking about. Not
Mhm.
enough folks are talking about the fact that that old antiquated statute that you can only allocate 11.7 scholarships in the sport of baseball. That's going to be history. It's going to be 34 full scholarships that you can allot to that sport moving forward, which is huge.
For for a guy like Skip Johnson, a guy that can eval, he can recruit, and he develops, particularly what he's done with the Oklahoma program over the last what 3 4 years. That is more than substantial because there are guys that they've probably felt were fringe, right? Takes, and they weren't able to do so because of the lack of scholarships that they probably thought, yeah, you probably could develop that guy into something if we could get him in our program, like right here, right now. Now he's off to, for example, Seminole State, and then he ends up developing into what they thought. And instead of helping Oklahoma, he's just off to the major league draft now.
Yeah.
And so, like that, I think people, what that's going to hurt is the junior colleges more than anything else. These community colleges like Redlands that used to be really good at baseball, that they're going to have some players that they notoriously would get are not going to be going there now. So that is so big. I'm really happy for Skip Johnson in that program. And obviously the $10 million is going to go a long ways. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they were just like, you have no idea what we have planned. Like this is going to be special for the baseball program. They're so hyped. There's momentum. There's a lot of happy people there. And I think you're starting to see Oklahoma, as a source put it to me yesterday, hit its stride across the board with NIL. And we're not just talking football. Hell, Porter Moser is freaking killing it right now. I mean, he's doing a damn good job. That 25 class has turned out to be just stupid
Yeah,
good.
well, and all of our questions, because like when Glenn Taylor committed out of nowhere the other day, nobody was ready for that except for our man Brody Lusk, who's on top
Yeah.
of everything OU basketball. Holy smokes. Um, when Glenn Taylor committed, the question we were all asking was, how is there room for him? Well,
Yeah.
it has become clear now because you got two additional scholarships to toy with.
Yeah. So do we, did that, I want to ask you because I didn't really dive into it after Brody reported. Did we know how the trip went for the Alabama transfer? Or did that take place?
I don't think that ended up happening.
Okay.
I would have to ask Brody. He would know much better than I. But
Yeah, that's out of
I
my
was
league.
told independently on Monday that visit was, and I quote, up in the air. I
Yeah.
think because they were about to, well, and obviously, like 3 hours after I was told that, Glenn Taylor announced his commitment out of
Yeah.
nowhere. So it could be, and again, I'm just spitballing. I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume what happened is they told Glenn Taylor to come on, and they told Chris Parker, don't even bother. We're full now.
Which is crazy, a former, top 100 player. But again, you find your fits, and I think Porter hopefully will be able to keep some of these dudes around for more than a year. I say that jokingly, but I'm also serious.
Hey, Alec
Um,
Blair was a huge get, man.
he was.
Huge. Like I don't know whether that truly resonated with the fan base yesterday as much as it should. That's a supremely gifted athlete, man. Obviously he is a top 40 national prospect in the 2025 class on the basketball court. So
Mm.
he's a dog as far as hoops is concerned. But
Baseball.
as Brody mentioned in his tweet, apparently the kid's playing high school baseball in California, which is a competitive state. Like that's a big state. It's a state that produces a lot of Division I talent in all sports just because it is so large population wise. the kid's hitting 565.
So
Goodness
basically, you're
gracious.
telling me every what? I guess what would you say that would be? I don't know, 60% of the time. So 6 out of 10 times he goes to bat,
Pretty
the
much, yeah.
dude's getting on base with a
Yeah,
dinger.
which is
Wow,
nuts. Nuts.
that's impressive.
I had a high school teammate who hit 565 when we were juniors, and he led the state of Nebraska. Now, the
Yeah,
state of Nebraska does not have as much baseball talent as California, but I remember the season he had where it was just like he was mashing the ball every single time he got up to the plate. You could count on him either launching one over the fence or deep in a gap somewhere for extra bases. To think that that's what that kid is doing right now in California
yeah,
is just absurd, man. And that dude could be one of the two sport greats at Oklahoma. Of course, I think the guys that get the most press are guys like Kyler Murray, who made an impact on the football field.
yeah.
Baseball, basketball is a little bit more of a rare blend historically.
It is right.
But yeah, Alec Blair, make no mistake about it, top flight dude in both of those sports. Elite addition for Skip Johnson and his program and Porter Moser and his program.
Yeah, it's the two sport. It's two sport U right now, right? I think that is very clear if you follow it. And yeah, Brody, we understand Brody's in the chat. That's why we're talking. And if you guys have questions for him, ask him in the chat. He will answer those for you. That's what he does. That dude is he's the best at anything with Oklahoma basketball, recruiting basketball, period. That's the man. That's why Parker and I said that's out of our league. We just kind of let him cook and do his own thing over
Yeah,
there.
you'll notice there was only one human being that had commitment quotes ready to go when Jeremiah Fears announced his pledge to
Yep.
Oklahoma. That man was Brody Lusk. Well done,
Yep.
sir.
Yep. Dude is amazing. I do we want to start with Fasusi? Do we want to start with Babalola? Do we want to start with summer workouts? I mean, okay. By the
Let's,
way, real quick,
you know what?
I totally we sidetracked there. By the way, with the money, um, the $10 million for Oklahoma football, we understand what it's going for in baseball. But everybody was asking, is this going to go NIL? I don't know how that can happen. I don't. I know that there are some people that I talk to within the university that feels like that is a potential possibility to kind of move that over at some juncture to allocate something fund wise into NIL. But what I do know is that there's a potential 5 million shortfall this year because of the non-revenue year that Oklahoma is going to partake in the SEC. Now, they're going to have revenue as far as bowl games, as far as what they can rake in, merchandise, home games, all that type of stuff. But they're not going to get the TV contract with the SEC because I think this is the last year, right? That it is Oklahoma and Texas aren't written into the TV contract as it rolls over into the new um, correct with ESPN.
Yeah,
So
so
they're going to use it. Somebody told me there was a potential 5 million shortfall. Well, Oklahoma get football program, it's 10 million. You can throw 5 of that in there. And then what that other 5 is used for, I think it's still, I'm sure
draw your
Joe
own
C,
conclusions. They'll
yeah, I'm
they'll
sure Joe
leverage
C
it
has
well.
an idea of where it can go. I'll
Uh-huh.
just put that. Yep.
Yeah.
So
I don't think anybody is going to quibble with where that money goes either.
no, I don't think so either. And yes, Topher B, Jaden O'Neal is on his way to Norman. He will be at both events this weekend. For those that don't know, he will be not only at the Sooners on the Stars, but he will stay and hang out at the Party at the Palace. Try to get to know some of those 2025 guys as well. All right. Let's what did you say you wanted to do first? Was it Fasusi or did you want to
Well,
talk
I was
about
going to
the
say,
summer
look, we
workouts?
we got a while to talk about Fasusi and Babalola because both of those recruitments are going to drag into August. We know the date for Fasusi, we don't for Babalola. I would say let's start with stuff from summer workouts. Because, and look, the disclaimer that I always throw out there before we dive into any conversation like this one is take it with a grain of salt, people.
Yeah.
What happens in summer workouts isn't always indicative of what's going to happen when the pads come on in fall camp or when the
Correct.
season rolls around. But generally, if you get dudes that are standing out in summer workouts, they're not going to vanish completely come September. These are guys that are going to have a major role with the program. And if they're already guys that we know are going to have a major role, it's always nice to hear that they're building in spring, summer, and then fall camp towards being even higher impact players than we anticipated they were going to be.
Well, to kind of, I agree. So I think I wrote about the defensive side of the ball, and look, it was an SEC media day. I'm going to do something with the offense this week as well. It's kind of an SEC media day recap slash, sourced information of what people thought about summer workouts. And a lot of it was with offense that I talked about in my first installment on OU Insider. Um, I just there's with the offensive line, I think people have this nationally more than anything else. They have this idea that the offensive line is just going to walk in there and they're just going to struggle. Now, what I think is a really cool perspective, Josh Pate said, look, I was watching him the other day, and he said exactly what I said on the podcast. Ironically, he said, Sharon Moore and Bill Beanbo, you just give them the benefit of the doubt whenever it comes
Yep.
to offensive line, period. And which I thought, thank you for reiterating that, Josh, or JP. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as people nationally think it's going to be. As a matter of fact, and there's a quote that was in the write up that I put up on OU Insider VIP. And well, I'm not going to dive completely into it because there's a lot of really good quotes in there about specific players. We hinted obviously about Jake Taylor, but I'll give you this generalized quote that was given. And I'm probably paraphrasing a little bit because I don't have it memorized. Essentially, it goes, look, if you're going to ask me what group was probably the most consistent through workouts, like not having bad days, and the group that was stacking the most days, it was the offensive line. And this person was like adamant about it. And I looked at him and I was like, when they told me that, I was like, are you sure? Like the offensive line, like I keep hearing all this other stuff about it. And they're like, no, 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 no. Listen, if anybody is going to be undersold, and if you want any coach to have a group of guys that feel like they're slighted, you want it to be Bill Beatonbow because he will get those guys ready. And this person, again, they see it every day. They're around it every day. They were so adamant and they were so believed in what they were telling me that it was hard for me not to believe it. I mean, I looked at him like just with like befuddlement because no, I believe the Bill Beatonbow stuff because I think he's the best offensive line coach in college football. But there's just so much as far they don't have the continuity, but that's what the Lane Johnson thing was for, right? They went and they hung out. They did the whole kumbaya. They they not only worked on their craft, but they worked on getting to know each other on and off the field in a more, spiritual manner, so that they can mesh better come fall camp. And
And
that was
that's what it's
huge.
and that's what it's about, Brandon. It is 100% about chemistry because this we can say authoritatively, without question, this holds up. This is going to be true. Nobody that starts for Bill Beatonbow in week 1 or at any point in the year is going to be soft. You're going to have 5 nasty dudes lining up in the trenches, 5 battle ready dudes. I mean, think about it. The guy that if there was a guy that everybody liked to pick on the last couple of years in Oklahoma's starting offensive line, it was McCade Matire. That dude got kicked out of a game last November for wailing on a guy.
Defending
So
DG. Yeah.
exactly. So the point is, as long as they gel, as long as they mesh, there's nothing to worry about with this offensive line because you know that the 5 dudes that Bill Beatonbow is going to line up, they're gonna be ready to hit somebody in the mouth.
They are. I don't think that's a question. And I think when you have a leader that is, I don't want to say feisty. I don't think that's the term I would use for Jacob Sexton, but I would say that has an edge about him. And he does. He is the nicest human being walking the face of the earth. And his family is too. But he also has just, he's got a fuse. And when that fuse is lit, he will tear your butt up. And you talk to anybody that is around that program, that's what they say about him. They say he's focused, he's driven, he's a leader. And he's a leader with the young guys, not in the fact of like, he's vocal. I don't want to say that he's not, but he leads by example. And if he has to make an example out of you, he will do it. He is not afraid to do it. I've been told he scares the out of a lot of those freshmen. It made knows Jake. That's not surprising.
Yeah.
Just because he is just who he is. Like he's so like the fans see him and he's just like this oh gosh darn type guy, And he really that's how he is off the field.
Off the field. Off
Off
the
the
field.
field. But the second that helmet goes on, that is a different human being. And not somebody I think I asked a couple of players one time, like, who you don't want to fight. And there was like almost unanimous was Jake Sexton. Like, I don't want any part of that guy. And they were older guys at the time. Like Jake was a freshman. Like, yeah, I don't want to mess with that dude. So, I mean, it's they have some leader, and I think that's what makes it good because you have Bill Bedenbaugh and you got Jake Sexton, and they're both kind of live on an edge, right? And they have a fuse.
Mm-hmm.
They're a match made in heaven, man.
Well,
I think that's what's going to either make or break this offensive line this year.
and Jake Taylor and Jake Sexton came in together in the 2022 cycle. That was Bill Bedenbaugh's entire class that year, if you'll recall, because they lost a pledge from Demetrius Hunter after Lincoln Riley departed for USC, which, by the way, I'm sure we'll get around to it at some point. Some hilarious storylines coming out of Big Ten media days with regard to his comments.
Oh my
But
God. Yeah.
yeah, Jake Sexton and Jake Taylor, they came in together, so they're kind of inextricably linked in that sense as the only two offensive linemen that Oklahoma signed in the 2022 class. And lo and behold, here we are in 2024, and those guys are going to be the bookends for this Oklahoma offensive line. And
Yeah.
to me, Brandon, and I know Jake Taylor hadn't really proven it yet. I know if there are questions swirling around one individual projected starter on the offensive line, the questions are swirling more so than the rest around Jake Taylor, and that's fair.
Yep.
I feel good about those two, man. Like, I feel like they give Oklahoma a really, really solid couple of bookends for this offensive line. And knowing the experience that you'll have on the interior with Garen Hatchett, Fabechi Wiwu, and then Branson Hickman playing those guard spots and center respectively, I I do think this offensive line is going to be a lot more competitive and a lot more capable, lot higher ceiling than many nationally seem to believe. And it only helps when you have a guy like Bill Bedenbaugh, who again has earned the benefit of the doubt developmentally at every turn.
Yes. And regarding Jake Taylor, if there's anybody I see Boom Squad said, I wish OU still had Savion, but at least we got Taylor and Sexton. And that's probably the best way to look at it because Jake Taylor also has, you don't want to say a screw loose because that's not like people take that as you're being negative towards a person. He just has he's different. You look at him, he's got like the Dusty Dvorak paint face, like he does a lot of the creative stuff and he plays with a chip
Having a
on his
screw loose
shoulder.
is a good thing. I mean,
It is,
that's
particularly on the
kind of
offensive
that
defensive
was the
line.
first thing we said
Linebacker.
about Danny Stutzman. First
Yeah.
time he ever put on the OU uniform. That dude's got a screw loose.
Yeah, and yeah, that's fair. And look, Jake Taylor's taken a huge step. Like I had that reiterated to me today. Uh, my kids were training at the facility we go to, and this person obviously that is around there and working with them, has a deep connection within the program, and essentially just told me, like, if there's anybody people need to know about, is Jake Taylor. Jake Taylor's doing a phenomenal job. And I said, well, and I think this is interesting because I don't know, people say, well, fall camp hasn't started. They haven't started practice. And he goes, dude, they're doing skills and drills and all sorts of other stuff all summer. Like, they're working on their craft. People that say Jake Taylor is doing what he needs to do means he's not exactly going up against an active defensive lineman. He knows the offense better than everybody else. He understands what's being asked of him. And that's literally 90% of the offensive line part, is knowing how to block, knowing your keys, your reads, and knowing exactly, are you supposed to combo block? Are you supposed to chip? Are you supposed to do just a myriad of things, where the blitz is coming from, all that type of stuff. And they say he understands that stuff, like the mental part, he has it down. And that is going to be big, because that, with the inexperience, togetherness wise, that's going to play a big part in all this. And that's where Jake Taylor's taking a big step. Rogue Sooner, thank you so much for the super chat. Love and appreciate you guys. Been on OU Insider for a while now. Keep up the awesome work. Now, my question: out of OU commits, who are the biggest risers, offense and defense, in the 2025 class?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
I like
And
that question.
we will answer that one. And then we need to finish talking about, because we got to talk about Taylor Tatum, obviously.
Yeah, no, we can circle
Yep.
back.
Okay. So, biggest risers, offense and defense in the 25 class. The biggest riser, I think, on Rivals still has to be Ryan Foje. I think eventually he's going to he's going to work his way into the top 100. I
You'd hope
believe.
so. You'd hope
You would
so.
think.
There are some guys every single class that, like, we obviously get out and see a lot of these guys in person in the fall, so we'll submit our evals and all that type of stuff. But I remember this being the case with Michael Boganowski last fall. I mean, I kept pushing it up the chain that, like, hey, this is a top 250 dude. He's
Yeah.
top 250. He's top 250. And he didn't move. He ended up being a 4-star, but he was a non-top 250 guy. And so
Yeah.
there are some guys that are just kind of going to be stuck, and that's the way of the world when it comes to rankings. But I do think Foje is a safe bet to take a major leap, probably into the top 150 at minimum. And I think he's already a top 100 guy on some services. So
Mhm.
he is definitely somebody that hasn't gotten his due yet, at least on Rivals with regard to his ranking. But I do think that'll change. Um, there are only how many 3-star commits are there? I think there are only 5. So Owen Hollenbeck is still a 3-star. Marcus James is still a 3-star.
I think he's
Kamari
somebody to
Moore.
watch as far as moving up, Marcus James, this year,
Yeah, and I would
because he's
agree
a
with
great
that.
athlete.
So yeah, only four 3-star commits right now. That's right.
I'm still going to say Floyd Bouchard, dude. I think
Floyd
Floyd
Bouchard
Bouchard.
will move up.
Yeah.
I trust that. The other one to me, and this is going to come as no surprise to anybody that's read what I've written about this kid on OU Insider or listened to the podcast. I think Manny Choice is viciously
That's a good
underrated.
one. Yep.
He is one of the 3-star dudes right now. He is one of Oklahoma's 3-star commits. That's not going to hold. It will not stay that way. And it might have to wait till his senior season and he puts up some really impressive tape and makes it undeniable. He's going to have at Lancaster this fall, he's going to have a Nevada commit, Carter Jones, throwing him the ball. So there's some firepower on that offense that there always is at Lancaster, but they've had quarterback issues the last couple of years. With Jones stepping into the role as the starter, I think there's a huge opportunity for Choice to go out and hang some impressive numbers on the score sheet. And if that does happen, especially if that happens, I think regardless of what his production looks like, he's a 4-star dude to me. Easy, easy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've said it before. I will say it again. Elijah Thomas is the most college ready of Oklahoma's wide receiver commits.
Agreed.
And that is why he is ranked the highest. If we are talking pure ceiling and ceiling alone, there is none of the other four touch Manny Choice. Now, whether he hits that ceiling is a different conversation. He may and he may not. But to me, he easily has the highest ceiling of any of those five that are committed.
Yeah, man, I am such an Elijah Thomas guy. And I think Emmanuel Choice has
Yeah, I mean
a high
Elijah Thomas
ceiling.
is kind of the can't miss guy, right? Like he's the guy that's going to get to Oklahoma and you know he's going to produce.
Yeah, I just want to know if he has first round potential because I kind of feel like he does. If he can develop into what I think he can develop into. I went out south and watched him at a team camp, and Kyler, my little 9-year-old son, was with me, and I go pick the guy that you think's committed to OU. And right then he gets the ball out of uh, the Wildcat formation and zigzags through everybody, and he taps me on my hip. I bet it's at number 0, huh, Dad? I said, yeah, you're right. Good call, son. It's pretty easy to find. And he was doing that against 4A kids. So like this is a 2A team, and he was just making them look like fools. And he's special. I mean, and we saw it at the Under Armour, right? That camp. He was so good. He just was. I mean, he was impossible to cover. So I think but I agree with you. I think Manny Choice he's got to move up because his film is too good not to. I don't understand the 3-star to begin with, and I'll say that. And I say that about a lot of kids that are even committed to Oklahoma. I'm like, how in the hell? Wait,
For instance, Mason James. Mason James is not a 3-star.
how? How? Yeah. I witnessed that one hand grab in person. He was in at our training session when he did that, Parker. Like, what? How is that dude not a
Well,
4-star and a top 250 kid is something I will never understand in the 26 class.
Well, and to me, what you look for in addition to the film with a guy like Manny Choice, I mean, if you're talking about the elite receiver prospects in the nation, you're really starting to split the hairs. You got to look at the complete athletic profile. And that dude was a state qualifier in the hurdles. He's 6'4", a legit 6'4". And from the time he was a freshman, already just had like a chiseled college ready frame. He checks every single box for me. I think that's why I'm so high on him, just because the athletic ceiling is ridiculous. I forgot it's actually Cortez Mills that's the highest ranked commit right now, wide
He
receiver for
is.
Oklahoma, not Elijah
Mm-hmm.
Thomas. But I think to me, Elijah Thomas is the can't miss guy. Emmanuel Choice is the highest ceiling guy. That's how I see it.
And look, Milton, nobody's sleeping on Cortez Mills. We watched him at the Rivals 5-star camp. He's stupid good. Like,
Yeah, I
what,
don't think you
what,
can sleep on a guy that's ranked number 69 in the
yeah.
country.
And I think what makes what Emmett Jones is doing so special is that
There's actually a conversation to be had here.
like there's a conversation, and the fact that I think we look at it and we're like, I think all those guys are going to produce if they get a chance. Like they're that good and they're that talented. Like I understand that there's only one ball that can be thrown around, but red shirts can take place, injuries take place. I just my gut feeling is that 25 wide receiver class goes down as maybe one of the best wide receiver classes Oklahoma's ever seen go through Norman. And again, I understand 2017 took place with Charleston Rambo, Hollywood Brown and CeeDee Lamb. I get it. I'm not comparing that class because that class, that group of wide receivers, I don't think will ever be touched at Oklahoma. And if they are touched, then damn. Props to Emmett Jones on that because that group was special. So,
I mean, heck, you want my hot take?
oh, are you going to
I
say he's going to be better than?
no. I was going to say I think this year's group of receivers can touch him.
Okay, but they weren't all from one class. That's kind of where I'm.
Oh, okay, yeah. If it's all one
Yeah,
class, and yeah,
that's that one class. No, I get that. Like I'm with you on that because that team had Mark Andrews, right? Trying to think, there was another wide receiver that was on that team that,
in 2017.
yeah.
Michael Jones
Yeah,
he had
he
a
was
few moments
decent.
that year.
Yeah, but he never lived up to the hype that
No.
people say. Christy Rambo was more than okay. I'm just gonna like he was better than okay.
He had an amazing year down at Miami after he transferred.
Yeah, he had
He
what
might have
1,300 yards, something like that.
set some school records that year.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was
he
really
went
he had
off.
like 800 yards the year before he left.
He
So
bailed a year early, cashed in his
yeah,
chips, went to the NFL or tried to go to the NFL, and that didn't
yeah,
work out. He
he shouldn't
should
have
have
done that.
stayed in college another year, but
Stevie Rowland is, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you. Is Christian Jones going to make it in this weekend? I noticed he wasn't on the list. Also, I would like to reiterate what Rogue Sooner said. I really appreciate what all your team does. Keep it up. Well, we appreciate you all.
yeah, hey
We
folks,
really do.
yeah, if the point wasn't made clear to you by Rogue Sooner and Stevie Rowland, both of whom we appreciate greatly, it is worth your while to go sign up at OU Insider. And that's the way you can stay apprised of everything that is going on because we talk about a lot on the
Correct.
podcast, we talk about a lot on the live stream. It's still a couple drops in the bucket compared to the wealth of intel and exclusive content that you get at ouinsider.com. It'll only cost you a few bucks a month. Go check it out, see if you like it. I tend to believe that once you lock in, we'll be able to make sure you stick around because the content is that good, it is that plentiful, and it is that exclusive. We do our
Yeah.
best to make sure that it's worth a few bucks a month that all of our members spend to get the best in the market in recruiting and basketball and football and softball and really across the board coverage at
Yeah.
ouinsider.com. To answer your question, Stevie, the plan was never for Christian Jones to be at Oklahoma this weekend. In fact, I need to double check. I need to confirm that this is still the case, but he had long since planned to be at Miami this weekend. Now, Miami
Hmm.
has not offered him. They already have 3 linebacker commits in the 2025 class, so I'm not anticipating that Miami's going to become a player there. I guess, theoretically they could. Guys that do commit to Miami, like those commitments tend to be a little bit looser than your average commitment. Uh, if we're just speaking from experience there. So maybe they do offer Christian Jones. Maybe they do become a player for him, but right now it's really about 3 schools: Auburn, Oklahoma, and Nebraska. I think this one comes down to OU Nebraska. And if his recruitment does drag into this season, I I would be willing to bet Oklahoma makes a hard push to get him back on campus for a game day early in the year. Because I think if you're Oklahoma, you want this recruitment to wrap up soon. I'll be honest, this to me, and the recruitments aren't necessarily similar really at all, other than the fact that Nebraska is involved. But like if this thing drags into November, like Grant Brix's recruitment did, it's probably going Nebraska's way. Um, if you're Oklahoma, especially with the momentum you had with Jones coming out of his official visit, you want to see this process wrap up relatively soon. Doesn't have to be next week, doesn't even have to be next month. But if he's still on the board trying to uh, process his decision and make the final call in mid-October, I think at that point, if your confidence hadn't already begun to wane, at that point it would.
So in the chat, this Topher says that Christian Jones is putting on a camp in Omaha this weekend.
Christian Jones he himself is putting on a camp. Huh. Okay. Well, if so, then great.
Whatever.
I haven't talked to the kid in a couple of weeks, so again he he had scheduled a visit to Miami this weekend. I meant to follow up with him today, see if that's still the case, but yeah, like I said, I don't really think Miami's a contender. It's to me, it's OU or Nebraska. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So I I want to say that in my talk about back to the team thing, in my talks about um just standouts this summer and through the workouts. And I know, sometimes that pans out, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't in the season. So you take it for what it is. Right now though, if I'm a betting man, I think that Taylor Tatum is going to make a significant impact this year for Oklahoma. And maybe I'm crazy, Parker, for
I
believing the hype, but
well, I mean, shoot,
I'm a believer.
he was the number one running back in the country last
I
year.
get
So
it.
you say the number
I
one
get
running
it.
back in the country is going to make an impact as a freshman? No, I don't think that's a crazy take. Now, I think when Taylor Tatum signed, maybe expectations were a little bit more modest for him right off the bat because of the room that Oklahoma had already assembled and has already assembled. When you look at the upperclassmen in the mix, Gavin Sawchuk, Javante Barnes, Sam Franklin, Caleb Hicks had a really, really strong spring by all accounts. And we got to see him in the spring game quite a bit. So, uh, where did Taylor Tatum or where does Taylor Tatum fit into that mix? It's hard to say until the pads come on, certainly, Brandon. But to believe that that guy could ascend the depth chart faster than anticipated, I think is very plausible for anybody that has watched Taylor Tatum suit up and play the running back position, because I think and to me it's the highest compliment that I can pay to a guy, because I've seen
Yeah.
very few dudes that are like this in my time covering recruiting. But the highest compliment I feel like I can pay a guy is that football just looks easy for him. Taylor Tatum is one of those select few. Like Caleb Williams made football look easy. Peyton Bowen, football was easy for
Mhm.
Peyton Bowen. Taylor Tatum to me is one of those rare few guys, and I could probably count them on both hands, that I've watched over the years, where it just looks like he is on an entirely different level of difficulty than everybody else.
Yeah. You, you got me thinking of guys that I've watched in person that made it look like, I would say Jackson Arnold was one of those his junior and senior year. It just looked like he, no matter what teams threw at him, coverages, blitzes, whatever, he either was going to, he's going to kill you with his feet or he was going to make you pay with his arm. Those were your two choices. You choose, you choose poorly every time you made a choice. It didn't matter when I was watching him his junior and senior year, which I thought was really fun. Which why I have confidence in what he's going to do at Oklahoma. I think the other guy is David Stone. I can't tell y'all as a freshman. As a freshman, I go and I watch him play McGinnis, and I'll never forget this. He's at Del City at the time, and they were having to hold him so badly, Parker, that his jersey, I think I have a photo of it still. His number 9, he wore 90 at the time, is just completely ripped apart in the front. And I think he had like one or two holding calls all night. The refs eventually, I remember hearing the refs say it. We will never end this game if we call holding against whoever's blocking number 90 on every play. Like literally heard the lead ref say that. Because Del City's coach, obviously, Coach Dunn was pissed. And like, why are you not calling holding here, guys? Like, I don't understand that. And he said, dude, we would never end the ball game if this happened. Like, they have to hold that kid. He goes, he's just a 14-year-old freshman, which just was just mind-boggling at the time. Football came very easy to David Stone. Um, and I agree with you, Taylor Tatum. I've watched Taylor Tatum one time live, and smooth is not the operative word I would use. I would use nasty explosive as far as phrasing goes, just because, and that's essentially kind of what people have talked about during this offseason. They said, even in the drills, even in skills and drills, they said, you see it and you
Yeah,
just know it. Like I had a person tell me today, you just know when you look at somebody sometimes that they're going to be special. And that's what they see in Taylor Tatum. I don't want to build the hype up too much because obviously that running back room is just loaded. DeMarco Murray's built just a
sure.
phenomenal room. And Javante Barnes is still there. And he's had a really good offseason. And he is going to eh, they expect him to have his burst back. The
Yeah,
confidence was hindering him last year with his leg, knee, his foot. They say he's got it back. Now we have to see it on the field because there's going to be a lot of skepticism going into this year with him.
certainly.
But there's depth. And I think that's the
Yeah.
key, the depth. Caleb Hicks too.
And Javonte Barnes to me is the one guy on offense, and to me on defense, the guy is probably Robert Spears Jennings.
Yeah.
Javonte Barnes is the guy that you tend to forget about because there are maybe what would be a good descriptive word, sexier options in his position group, guys that will command the headlines more easily. Obviously, RSJ's in that safety room with Billy Bowman and Peyton Bowen, two of the most talented defensive backs in the entire country. And Javonte Barnes is in a running back room with Gavin Sawchuk, who came on so strong last year. We've been talking for 5 minutes now about Taylor Tatum, and they brought in Sam Franklin. Caleb Hicks had a really strong spring, but let's not forget how good Javonte Barnes was as a true freshman
Yeah.
in 2022. That guy crossed the 100-yard threshold in his fifth collegiate game. That's a really hard thing to do at the University of Oklahoma. I mean, I would have to fact check it, but I would figure he was probably the first guy since Samaje Perine to do that as a true freshman. Now, um, with regard to Taylor Tatum, I think the other thing that stands out to me about him and why I believe he's going to be so good is we know he's a very, very good baseball player as well. So I'm not trying to, no pun intended in how I phrase this, but he doesn't try to hit a home run every single time. I
Yeah.
think what helps set him apart as a running back is that he knows when to try to hit the crease and pick up a big chunk of yards or go to the house. He also just knows when to cover up, burrow down, plow ahead for 3 or 4 yards. I went to Longview's game against Forney last year. It was a matchup of two excellent running backs in Taylor Tatum and Javian Osborne, who's a 4-star in the 2026 class. And Longview had nothing going through the air that night. They ended up winning the game 13-7, but Taylor Tatum was the offense. He had to be the offense. He carried the ball at least 30 times that night. And every single time he touched the ball, he knew exactly what he needed to accomplish. And in the late stages of that game, when they just needed 4 yards on every play to keep the chains moving, bleed the clock, that's what he was getting him, man. And the size too, like I think he is the perfect, like he's the prototypical size. He's what you want a running back to look like. There's going to be an alien like AD every now and again that's 6'1",
Yeah.
220. Okay, it's great to have one of those guys, but 5'10", 205, and just jacked as all get out. Like that's what you want an SEC running back to look like.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. And I know people are asking about Sam Franklin, and I mean, Parker, you can vouch for that. The few practices that we got to witness, like long standing practices, but we were there for like an hour and 45 minutes. DeMarco was on his butt a lot about doing things correctly. And I think it's more because he was new and he was still learning and getting kind of indoctrinated into the culture. So it's hard for me to sit there and believe any like hype stuff about him right now. That said, all you have to do is go back and watch what he did, right? The previous year, 1,400 yards. I get it that it was at a smaller division, whatever. He's still a baller. The dude still got speed. I think OU is going to use him. I think early on, you're going to see them use a lot of the running backs to see what they have with them when the lights are on. I think there's going to be some questions. I think they understand what they have in Gavin Sawchuk, and Gavin Sawchuk's going to be the dude. He's 200 pounds now, 200 pounds plus. And so he's, according to what I was told, the biggest deal for them, and this dates back to when Sawchuk was a freshman and why they didn't play him until the very end in the ball game, is because they wanted him to put on weight. They wanted him to get more physical within the tackles. And again, we saw that last year. And he does have a propensity sometimes to have hamstring issues, like a lot of speed guys. Speed guys and hamstrings, that's a thing. Like that's what happens. Sprinters in general. But he's more physical. He's heavier. He's stronger. He understands the game more. He understands the offense better. Therefore, as he gained confidence throughout the year, particularly the last 6 games, you got to see what the hype was about coming out of high school with Gavin Sawchuk. Now he gets to build off that, which I think is going to be big. As long as the offensive line turns out to be just adequate, he should have 1,000 yards this year. I don't think that should not even be a question in my opinion. So the running back room's in a good spot. offensive line. Two freshmen that nobody's really talking about publicly, but that I've heard a ton about is Jeremiah Newcomb, and Devin Jordan. And I know everybody, Reggie Powers and Powers Senior. I see you out there, Mister Powers. Appreciate you watching.
We got
We
Mr.
all,
Powers and we got
yeah,
Big Mike
we got the
Boganowski.
dynamic duo, the freshman safeties. Yes, the
Love
fathers.
both of those guys. Hey, Mike, let me know if you want to hop on CFB 25 later.
Yeah, yeah. Are y'all both PlayStation guys?
We are both PlayStation
I'll
guys.
still
You're
whip
the
y'all cross. You can cross. You can play. I can play y'all. Whoop y'all up. Anyways, back to that. Yeah, Devin Jordan. Everybody loves Devin Jordan. Like he came in June. He was a late arrival, but he's been, he said, just phenomenal.
Yep.
Jeremiah Newcomb's not big, but they
Mhm.
said he's fast and he has some of the best football IQ out there. Period.
And that to me, man, like I forget what the superlative I used for Jeremiah Newcomb in the signing day piece that we did was. Like I forget what exactly the superlative was, but like Jeremiah Newcomb is the guy that is so easy to overlook. I
Wimberly's on
think.
too, dude.
Oh, is he really? Oh
Yeah,
man,
got all the
it's a
safeties.
party. It's a party. The whole
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah. But no, I like Newcomb. First off, he's got an amazing football pedigree. His dad was a baller back in the day at Nebraska and then later in the NFL. But I think the reason he got so little press is because, well, he's from Arizona. It's not that easy for one of us to go out watch him on a Friday night. But he
Hmm.
committed early and he just stayed out of the limelight
Yeah.
and just kind of. But like you look at his statistics, what he did as a high school, he was a 4-year varsity contributor. I think he picked off like 8 passes as a senior. Like his production over the course of his high school career was outstanding. You combine that with the football pedigree, there is so much potential for that kid under Jay Valai at Oklahoma. I think because when you come from a background like that and you have a dad who played football at the highest level, you're already at a natural advantage.
Hmm.
And that's like, and of course, everybody's gonna cite the Archanon thing because I think that's kind of become the counter example to all of this is, or I guess people don't necessarily want to believe that a kid ought to be given the benefit of the doubt because they had a dad that played big time ball somewhere, and I don't know that you want to bet the farm on a kid like that turning out to be a superstar, but to me, there's so much to like about Jeremiah Newcomb, and he's always struck me as a guy that could make some waves earlier than expected in Norman. And he and Eli Bowen are on very similar footing in that regard to me. When you look at the trajectory of their individual development, I would consider both of those guys ahead of schedule right now because Oklahoma's got a deep cornerback group. They don't need those guys to play
Yeah.
right off the bat in year one. But I feel very confident that if Oklahoma, for some reason, gets into a pickle of some sort, you have the injury bug bite or whatever. If you got to throw Eli Bowen and or Jeremiah Newcomb on the field in 2024, I feel like there's going to be plenty of confidence in letting those two
Mm.
dudes loose and believing that they can hold their own, even as true freshmen in the SEC.
Agreed, and with DJ as well, Devin Jordan. I think they're not surprised. I think anybody that comes out defensive back wise comes out of Tulsa Union has always turned out to be really good. I mean, look, Pat Fields wasn't the most talented kid, but he made plays for OU. He was smart, and you knew he was going to make a tackle. Like he was always a really sure tackler. I mean, obviously you got Trey Brown, you had Josh Proctor at Ohio State, right? Like they Dom, Dominic Franks. I mean, I could go. The list is so long from Tulsa Union in defensive backs. If you get a
Jaden
defensive back,
Rowe.
Yeah, there you go, Jaden Rowe, but he has not played a whole lot. But you can almost guarantee 99% of the time that they're going to pan out. And I think you're seeing that already. You're hearing that already with Devin Jordan. And I don't want to ruin all my notes. So I'll throw one more thing out there, and then we can talk Fasusi and Babalola, and then in the live. But I I think the most interesting thing as far as the safeties go, and again, I'll talk so much in the notes I have coming up later on this week about the defensive line and what I'm hearing about them. And you won't be shocked by a lot of it, but there's some really cool quotes in there that I have. But um, I said this several weeks ago, and I'll just paraphrase it again. A lot of people within that program feel that Reggie Powers and Boganowski are going to be day one, day two guys. Like they feel it. They believe it and they feel it. And on top of that, a guy that has been talked about a ton, not a safety, but another corner that has been talked about a ton this offseason of just taking just that another big step and understanding what is that being asked of him. You're probably going to know it because I'm going to give it away, kind of hint towards you. Is Jay Valai, every time that we are at a practice, he spends a lot of time really engaged with this player because they feel like this kid has the potential to be a superstar, potentially on both sides of the ball if he ever wanted to. Who do you think I'm talking about?
Jacoby.
Yes. I was told just the other day that you talk about raw, you talk about just not understanding football because you were just so new to the defensive side of the ball because he played offense in the short period of time that he actually played football before they moved him over. They said he is just becoming a sponge, just a sponge. And then with his athleticism and what he does, he's not afraid to hit. He's physical. He's long. He weighs what, 205? Like he's huge, 6'2", 205. He's just a big dude. And he's going to be physical. And he's the he's a prototypical SEC corner, is what I was told. And that's what they expect out of him, is to be that at some point in time in his career. On top of that, I was also told that if it ever came a pinch or if OU ever was in a pickle, that he might be the best wide receiver on the roster.
Yeah, which to be clear,
That's not even an outlandish
as
statement
long as
either.
Emmett Jones is employed at the University
Yeah,
of Oklahoma, they're never going to be in that type of pinch.
but that's still
But
crazy to say.
no, and look, I said it when he signed. I thought he could have been a major contributor as a freshman if he'd played wide receiver. And
Yeah,
I thought long term his ceiling might have been higher at wide out. But with the athlete that guy is, and how attentive he is to detail and
he's
how much of
smart,
a
man.
desire he has to
Yeah,
be great, like you can't really go wrong wherever you stick him. And for Jacoby being in that cornerback room, where he is surrounded by very talented dudes, no question,
mm-hmm.
but dudes who just don't have the sheer physical gifts that he does at 6'3", 203 or whatever he is. Like
He's stupid.
he's
Yeah,
he's an SEC corner on steroids
yeah,
is what he is. Now it's just a matter of continually refining the technique, making sure that he's ready to go step for step with the best wideouts in the SEC, which he's certainly athletic enough to do. You hammer home the technique with that dude, man. And he's going to have a larger role no later than next season, certainly, because I
mm-hmm.
think we all project that it's going to be Gentry Williams and Woody Washington that open the season as the starting cornerbacks for Oklahoma in 24. But you'll still see a lot of Jacoby Johnson. 25, Woody's gone for sure. Des Malone's gone for sure.
Decent chance Gentry could
Decent
leave.
chance
Yeah, yeah,
Gentry's gone. Yeah, like that
yeah.
needs to be acknowledged. So there will be more put on Jacoby Johnson as he steps in his
Absolutely.
junior year.
All right. Close this thing out. Michael Fasusi, 5-star out of Louisville, Texas. Look, I don't know that he's visiting anywhere. I'm trying to pinpoint what his plans are. Last he told me was that there was like a church camp potentially this week that he may be going to, or something in that realm. But that was a couple weeks ago. So I've been trying to dig around. I should know when I find out and confirm one way or the other. I'll put it up on OU Insider. Yay or nay, he's coming. Um, Having said that, though, it's weird. I talked to somebody yesterday about NIL again, and I just asked, is there an understanding about offensive line and what needs to be done and what is probably expected? And Oklahoma's never going to throw seven figures at anybody like that. They didn't throw seven figures at Dominique Williams, despite what people say. They're just not going to do that. Maybe a quarterback, yes, okay, and there may be an exception down the line, like an edge rusher or something to that extent. That's just there's zero chance that you could turn that person away, and you've got to make that type of investment. But even if it's not seven figures, I think Oklahoma is going to throw enough out there that if they lose it, somebody is going to have thrown out seven figures or more, and it'd be Texas. But there's still some confidence there again, and we talked about this, Parker. What does that confidence mean a month out?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
It
But
means
still, we have to
nothing.
talk about it, and there's still. It's weird because at the SEC media days, Texas people were walking up to me and saying, "I don't think Texas is going to get Michael Fasusi." Like they just don't feel it, which
No.
is crazy. It's crazy. And it goes in line with they said that there's people around him that felt like Lamont Rogers was going to go to Missouri about a month out, and then it became Oklahoma, and then it became Missouri again. Like it went back and forth. But there was one or two people within, and they're similarly in the same camp as with Fasusi. They're like standing on the table saying it's Oklahoma. They never those same people never budged with Missouri with Rogers, apparently, from what I
Yeah.
was told.
Well,
Now, will it play out that way? Can Oklahoma get as lucky as Missouri? I don't know. We'll
yeah.
see.
Well, and I mean, there are so many examples and counterexamples to this phenomenon. For
Yeah.
instance, a month out from David Stone's commitment, it was Oklahoma. It ended up being Oklahoma. It got hairy, but it was Oklahoma. A month out from David Hicks' commitment, though, it was Oklahoma. And then, I mean, shoot, 24 hours out, it was Oklahoma. And then it ended up being Texas A&M. So, like, end of the day, you never know. You never know until
Yeah.
the final NIL offers hit the table, and that time will come in the final days of Fasusi's recruitment leading up to his commitment date. So there, I don't think much will change between now and then as to the overall feel. I think the overall feeling right now is OU has the inside track, but that has the opportunity to change and change significantly when these schools, these three schools that are still in the race, OU, A&M, and Texas, put
Yeah.
forth their final offers. I do think it's an OU Texas battle. I think A&M will
Absolutely.
run
Yeah.
third.
Yeah.
With Babalola, man, I think the common narrative right now that you will read is that it's Michigan Stanford that are his top two. I disagree. I think it's Michigan OU, Stanford third right now. The common denominator there is obviously Michigan, and I would concede that Michigan leads right now. That decision has not been made even quietly. There's still a lot to be determined, and I do know that Oklahoma has been in very, very consistent contact with Babalola, putting the hard sell on him down the stretch to try and lock him down. And whether that's successful or not, time will tell. The vibe I'm getting from the OU side is that it might be better if things continue to kind of, well, I don't even know how to communicate what I'm thinking. But like basically, here's a loose comparison. Here's a loose comparison. Grant Bricks, and it feels weird to be bringing him up twice, especially for a kid that didn't end up going to
Did you just
Oklahoma at
giving
all. But
people PTSD again?
yeah,
Why?
no, but the thing with
Ah,
Grant Bricks was the timeline kept getting kicked back, right? The timeline kept getting kicked back. And with Babalola, the timeline has gotten kicked back a couple of times based on, when the loose ballpark date as to when he wanted to lock in his commitment. And so I think the feeling from the OU side is that if things continue to drag out, especially if there's a world in which this recruitment lasts into the season, then that could be advantageous to the Sooners. But needless to say, when Michael Fasusi is making his decision on August 22nd, if indeed that one goes OU's way, I don't feel like Babalola is going to be super eager to come to Oklahoma when the Sooners already have an elite left tackle committed.
Yeah.
So August 22nd, I think, is your drop dead date. Well, you'll know for sure which way
You,
things are going with both of these guys.
so you don't
But
think you don't think Babalola would go play? Oh, I'll just go play right tackle, and he can play left tackle, or vice versa. You don't think it could be
no, guys
more
that
like that?
good. No,
I
I think they
agree.
want
I
to keep
just
the
wanted
guy.
to hear what you
Now,
had to say.
yeah, now the plan right now is for Babalola to commit in early August. If that holds right now, my money's on Michigan. But I do think OU is running second. I do think it's a closer battle than people think, and I do not think it's going to be Stanford.
What do you think changed there?
I mean, I don't know that anything ever changed. Um, I just think, what do you and I see when we look at Stanford, Brandon?
Not football.
A lot of academic prestige,
Yeah.
not a
Well,
whole lot of
yeah, I think that
capacity to
goes
compete
without
at a high
saying.
level in the sport of
Yeah.
football. And
An empty
that's
football stadium.
yeah, exactly like there's just if you want to be an elite football player, and we talked about this on the podcast, right? Babalola comes from a medical family. If you want to be a doctor and you want to play offensive tackle in the NFL, those dreams aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but they do kind of clash a little bit. And so if football is what Babalola is serious about, and from what I'm told, that is what he is most serious about at this point, then there is no reason to go to Stanford over a place like Oklahoma or Michigan. So I
Yeah.
don't think it's going to end up being Stanford. I do think it comes down to Michigan OU. I believe that is the top two right now, with the Wolverines having the edge on the Sooners.
There you go. Um, so Lee Bird, appreciate you with the super chat. Texas sucks, he says, even on this new college football game. There
I
you
hope
go.
you know that because you're playing against them and not with them, Lee.
My son beat me when he was Texas and I was Oklahoma. Dude,
Did you kick him out of the house?
I was up
Did
by
you make him sleep
14.
outside?
Uh, no, I'm not that mean. I wish I would have. I was up by 14, and I kid you not, Jackson Arnold fumbled 3 times and threw 3 picks. That momentum thing is real.
No, that's
He scored
foreshadowing, folks.
37 unanswered points. Don't you put that juju on me like that, bro. Don't you do that because people will come back. They will bookmark this and they will come back.
Yeah.
Hey, XXD Scott XX says, why does it say a Michael Fastidious update, but I'm 40 minutes in and nothing? Well, we told you at the
You must
beginning.
be you must be behind
You're
because we've been
behind.
streaming for a lot more than 40 minutes.
Yeah, and we talked about we just got done talking about Fasusi and Babalola and gave you a pretty detailed update. All right. Anyways, that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. If you're not a member of OU Insider, like Parker said earlier, go sign up. $9.95 a month, $99.95 will get you a whole year. $9.95 will get you a month. Look, it's worth it, especially this time of year. There are going to be probably 45 or so visitors, and there's several 5 stars on campus over the next few days. 26, 27 classes. That's up. Oklahoma's essentially done with 25. It's on to 26, on to 27 classes. Some big time defensive tackles are on campus. Some big name wide receivers. Obviously, Jaden O'Neal's back. Big name cornerbacks in town. Big name safeties. I mean, if you, whatever position, O lineman, like whatever position, there's big names that are there. Parker and I will have you covered on OU Insider VIP updates from all of those guys, where things stand with a lot of guys. And look, I don't know. Will there be a commit this weekend? Will there not? I think if I was going to put a bet on commitment this weekend, I would say no, but if there's going to be one, there's two guys I have in mind.
Mm.
One's a safety and one's an offensive lineman. Um, I just, there's a chance, and we'll have that update for you on OU Insider VIP. $9.95 a month, $99.95 will get you the whole year. Plus, fall camp kicks off next week. Parker and I, Jesse, Brian, we will be at several of the practices. We will have post practice updates for you guys all over there on OU Insider VIP. If you want full coverage of that, you got to go over there. Plus, you ask us questions on here, right? Well, if you want to not have to wait till Wednesday to ask us a question that may or may not get answered, if we see it or not, you go over there to OU Insider VIP. Guess what? We answer them. We are always on there answering questions. You ask, we answer. I do a VIP chat every week. I answer it the whole week. If you go in there, you ask, I answer. You can start your own thread. Ask this question. I answer it. You can also talk with so many people. So many OU fans are on there talking constant. There's thousands and thousands of OU fans on there all the time talking, chopping it up, talking OU athletics, football recruiting, whatever have you. It's all over there right now. OU Insider VIP. Again, $9.95 a month, $99.95 will get you a whole year. All right. Also, this subscribe to this YouTube channel. Help us get to 16,000. After that, help us get to 17,000. But we will have daily updates, daily videos, daily podcasts, daily everything OU football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, all right here on this YouTube channel for you guys and your enjoyment. All right. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drumm. You guys have a blessed day.